Happy Friday, y'all. And it's Friday, so that means it is time for our Women Entrepreneurs Living Child Free weekly conversation. And I'm super excited today to be joined by Gini. She is going to be helping us all kinds of stuff when it comes to our lives. So I'm excited to have her. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Tiffanie. I love that you're doing this. I love that you're creating this space for women who want to be child free, and for all of you out there that have always wanted a support group for our type of lifestyle. Here it is. She's done it, ladies. She's done it. She's created it. Welcome to the family, right? Because Tiffanie, we need that. Like, we need to be around other women that are aligned with us.
Yeah, so do me a favor. It's a great segue. We're going to dive right into that, actually. Can you talk a little bit about why this is needed, why you feel so powerfully? Because you were quick into when I said we were going to do this, because you're interview number 2. So welcome to that second episode, y'all.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think what you're doing here is so powerful because I mean, ladies, if you're out there, if you're listening, if you are child free by choice, this has probably happened to you. You meet friends and they're like, yeah, we don't have kids either. And everyone's like, isn't it great? Don't you love it? Don't you love that none of us have kids? And then 3 months later, they're pregnant. And you're like, what happened? I thought we had a pact. I thought we had a thing going, right? What the heck? And so I have actually wanted this type of community for a long time. And that's why I was so quick to join, Tiffanie, because the second you said it, I was like, yes, I've been trying to create this kind of community and these kinds of friends for a really long time.
Yeah, I didn't know child free was a thing. Like, as a word, a designation. I've known that I didn't want to have kids. Yeah. I just didn't know there was like this out here. It was always like, oh, you meet someone. So I'm like, oh. And I found a few child free communities. A lot are nasty. It's like amazing. I'm like, what? But they're not for entrepreneurs. It's like, how do you, what happens when your friend's expecting? How do you keep your friendships through babies? Which the answer is apparently you don't, for the most part.
I mean, I have had some friends get sort of offended because they expect me to be super, super into the baby thing. It's not that I don't like kids, guys. I was a nanny, like in college and out of college. I nannied. I took care of my nieces and nephews that were all. So there's a huge age gap in my family, huge, like 17 years at the smallest age gap, up to 25 years. So my nieces and nephews are all actually my age. And so when my sister had her younger kids that were younger than me, I took care of them. I lived with her and cared for the kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like kids. I do. But, what I find is that when people start having kids, they start gravitating towards friends that have kids because it's easier, right? You get together, the kids can play together. Like, it's just easy. It's more in alignment. And so what happens is this kind of a bit of a rift can happen, and it's okay. It's just that, like, this is the trajectory for that friend. And, I'm not necessarily the one who's going to show up to all of the first birthday parties and the things like that, because I don't have kids to bring to play.
Yeah.
Right. And all of that, I don't know. So yeah, I've had that experience. I've had that experience of friends being like, now, how come you're not more involved with my child's life? And I'm like,
because it's not my thing.
It's not my thing. It's just not my thing.
I totally get you on that. And so it's interesting because we are talking a little bit on the personal. How have you noticed what has been the impact as far as in the business realm? How is it like being a child-free woman?
Oh, I mean, I love it, but I always chose this, right? So, just to give you guys a little background on me, I was in an open marriage for 20 years. I was with my husband, and I are going to celebrate our 20-year wedding anniversary on the 27th of this month. We've been together for 23 years. We are transitioning out of that relationship into other relationships that he and I had that were longstanding. We're great friends. It's amicable. Everything's going great. But on our very first, so I knew the moment I met him, I knew time stood still. And I knew
Aw.
that this was a very significant relationship for me. And so what happened was when that happened, I knew that I had to have the conversation with him, like right off the bat. I had to have the conversation of, I don't want to have kids. And how's that going to affect us? Right. And so I brought that up right away, right? On our second date, I was like, just so you know, two things. One, I will never take your last name. And two, I don't want to have kids. And so if those are big deal breakers for you, we should get this out of the way now because I know these two things about me. And he was great. He like really took, he was like, that's fine. I'm okay with not having kids. So I've always known this about myself, that even as I was nannying, even as I was taking care of other people's kids, and I'm great at that. I just knew that I didn't want to have my own kids. I knew that I wanted to have the ultimate freedom of my life really only being about me and what I wanted, and that I didn't want to care for another being. I just was very clear about that. And early on. So in my life, I've traveled the world. I owned a very successful travel business for years. I still own it. Don't do a lot with it anymore, but I built that business. So I've owned or operated 5 multi-million-dollar companies.
Nice.
And part of my agility, I think, in doing that, and part of the reason that I've been able to do so many different industries and different things is I really could always just do what I wanted. And I had a very supportive spouse who was like, yep, whatever you want, whatever your dream is, go get it. And so my very successful travel company, I built it from absolutely nothing to $5 million a year in annual revenue, recurring year over year. And we traveled the world, he and I both. We had a bunch of other friends that were also, a lot of them were also child free, and they worked with us and helped us. And we just really were kind of footloose and fancy free, so to speak.
And it's amazing. Yeah, it does give more time because there's less people around that we have to take care of.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that also did happen to me was it did actually allow for more time for me to care for our aging parents. So kind of what happened is my brothers and sisters, now they're all so much older than me.
Yeah.
That they actually were into like kids and grandkids before my dad was before my dad passed and was old enough to need care. But I really did enjoy taking care of my dad in his final years. He did have to be in a nursing home, but what we did is we picked one that was really close to our house, and we would just go pick him up like 3 or 4 days a week, bring him to the house for a little while, because he could be out for a little while. He didn't have to be there all the time, but there were some care needs that he had that made it where he really couldn't live with us. And so we had a good time with him. I had a great time with him in the last few years of his life, picking him up, taking him to dinner, bringing him over to watch football. And, and so that was a nice piece that I did choose to take on. But I was really at a lot of choice to choose that.
Mm.
So I think that's how it feels a little different. Like it's a bonus for my dad and a bonus for me that I decide to go pick him up, that I decide to spend time with him. Right. Yeah. And I just, for me personally, didn't want the commitment of, no, I'm here. Like I have to wake up every day and take care of this being and do that. For me, that just wasn't appealing.
I get you. Well, it's awesome. I love the conversations that we're having so far, y'all. And that's what we do when we're here. We have these conversations, and I figure we do want to get into business a little bit. And so we've already heard a little bit about Gini's business, but her family, but she apparently was born into a family of entrepreneurs. Business is just second nature to her. She began her first business at the age of 16 and never stopped. So I'm curious. And here I am again, y'all. I've got the bio and I'm not even making it through before we derail. What was your first business?
So my first business, my sister and I had a house cleaning business when I was in high school. So we cleaned houses, just little maid service. My second business was in my early 20s with my mom. My mom and I and my husband got into the bus charter business.
Oh, okay.
And so we went from zero to like $1 million a year pretty quickly. It was like 6 months, really. Now that's easy to do, by the way, guys. If you're out there and you're entrepreneurs, the $1 million mark does not have to be your ultimate goal. It's very easy to hit $1 million when there's a lot of zeros on the end of what you sell. So, when you're selling 40 or 50 bus movements at a time, and each one of those buses is costing $2,000, right? You're doing $40,000 or $80,000 in a weekend or a day. It's pretty easy to reach $1 million pretty quickly. And everything we did was volume like that. Same thing in my later travel business. I started out in sports travel. Well, a base package for the Super Bowl back then was $10,000, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to hit $1 million when you got a lot of zeros at the end. So so my second business was in transportation. Then I went out and I got hired by a couple of different companies to scale their companies, to take them from, where they were to the next level. I got hired also to start companies from the ground up and make them saleable quickly. So I would start with nothing. We'd set up all the processes, procedures, get all the inventory. These were brick and mortar stores. Get all the inventory in, hire all the people, train them, do all the manuals, do all the processes, and then get the business ready to sell as quickly as possible. So I did one that they wanted to sell it in 5 years, and they wound up selling it in 3. We got it a brick and mortar with inventory profitable in the first year and a half, which is pretty difficult to do. There's a lot of inventory. There's construction costs for the build out of a brick and mortar, and there's also inventory cost, right? So brick and mortars are very front heavy on, in terms of having a lot of sunk cost in the very beginning. And so we were able to get that back pretty quickly and sell the business really quickly. And then when I went back into business for myself in my travel business, and it was actually slow. That one took a while to get it to its first $1 million. It took like 5 years to get it to its first $1 million. But then we were cooking with gas and got it going in a really big way. We specialized in travel, specifically for network marketing companies is where we found our space. We did sports. We did 2 things. We did sports travel. Then we started specializing in travel for network marketing companies. And then we had another piece of specialty that was just basically massive groups. We wouldn't even look at your trip unless it had 100 rooms, which is 200 people, right? So that's so again, guys, easier to make $1 million when you're traveling 100 people at a time or 1,000 people at a time. So, no pressure there, folks, on having those zeros behind your revenue if you don't need them or want them.
I was talking to someone recently and she's like, yeah, I'm thinking about, I love making ice cream and I might do an ice cream shop. And I'm like, no. She's like, that was really, you didn't even, I'm like, you're selling ice cream. It's $5 or $10. Do you know how much ice cream you have to sell? I mean, I get it's Florida. It's hot. We want ice cream, but I'm like that you're going to work your tail off for very little money.
Yeah. I had a friend that he wanted to open a bar. And I was like, okay, well, let's get to the bottom of why you want to own a bar.
My husband's wanted to open a brewery for years. So I'm
right.
So.
Yeah, right. Oh, talk about front end cost there. Oh my God, girlfriend. So much front end cost. So, I talked him through. I was like, you want to do this because you like to host people. You love to be the host. You love to welcome. And he does. He loves to have parties at his house. He loves to host people. Like it lights him up. I was like, you would be better served to create some kind of theme parties at your house or theme dinners and put those out to the world. Because part of it was also like around gaming, like playing board games, RPGs, playing any kind of gaming, right? Magic, The Gathering, anything like that. He's like, I want to have a bar that can also do that. I'm like, that's awesome. I was like, but are you prepared to work 80 hours a week? And because this is a guy who like retired early, and he's like, oh, well, but couldn't I do it like? Couldn't I only be open, Tuesday through Saturday? And I'm like, and miss Sunday brunch? When couldn't I only be open from like 6 to midnight? I'm like, and miss happy hour? And he's like, and then I'm like, and not only that, but just so you know, like your liquor deliveries are going to come in the middle of the day. And someone has to be there to receive them. And by the way, if you're not present in that type of business, people will steal from you. Like, it's just the way it goes. Right. And he's like, well, crap. I was like, yeah, I'm just saying, like, we have to think these things through.
Yes, that makes such a huge difference. So tell us a little bit about what you are doing nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you've got lots of stuff going on still.
Yeah. So I really have 2 passions nowadays. One is I love to help business owners get their business out there in a much bigger way, really, really fast by helping them to get on podcasts. And so I do that through a program called Media Firestorm. And we guarantee them 50 podcasts in 6 months, which creates what we call a media firestorm, which is super awesome. And then I also have a totally spiritual side to myself. And that's what we're going to offer the audience today. I built a business out of my wounding. I have these core wounds around not being good enough, around abandonment. And I realized as I started to heal, as I, got into my 40s, I started to do some healing. And I realized that I built a multi-million-dollar business out of this place of wounding where nothing's ever perfect in travel, but I was a perfectionist and that was a coping mechanism that I had developed. And so basically that little wound was getting pressed on every single day because nothing is ever perfect in travel, right?
Yeah.
Something happens, delayed, your room isn't ready, your room is under construction, there's a problem with, another guest or whatever happens. And so what was happening was my little abandonment wound and my little imperfection wound and my little not good enough wound was just getting like tapped on every single day. And it dawned on me that I'm probably not the only person that this is happening to, right? We all have, I look at it like as a triangle. At the top of the triangle is your zone of genius. In the middle of the triangle is your zone of excellence. Okay. And at the bottom is like your zone of competence. Okay. So most of us create businesses there in that zone of excellence because we have a hard time believing that we can get paid for our zone of genius. Right? Because it's easy, right? And what are we told? Work hard, right? We got to work hard. So if it's too easy, we think, well, I can't get paid for that. But truly, the things that are in our zone of genius come effortlessly to us, are very easy for us to do. So what most of us do, excuse me, gotta love a live show. No editing here, guys. What happens is in that zone of excellence, we actually have two pieces. We have one, things that we're really excellent at because we're truly excellent at them and they are fairly easy for us and we're fairly talented at them. We have other pieces of that zone of excellence that we've become excellent at them because they are a coping mechanism. So what can happen is sometimes, typically when we're going to build a business, very rarely do we actually get into the zone of genius right off. Eventually, some of us get there. We eventually we realize that that's where we need to be. But what we stay in is the zone of excellence. And so there's like a 50-50 chance that some of those things are actually coming out of wounding, right? So what I love to help people with is to really, when they're at that place of like the dark night of the soul, when they're at that place where they feel like nothing is working, I love to help people that are in that place to break free of that. And we have an energy clearing meditation that I think I provided to you guys, as well as a little thing I call the decompression sessions. It's just a place to come and let your feelings out, because the first part of healing is feeling, right? Feeling your feelings and not running from them anymore, not pushing them away, but really sinking down and feeling your feelings. So I'm very passionate about helping people with that as well. So I'm kind of up to two things in the world, and we really kind of set up to talk more about the second piece while we were on this particular.
Well, we're always flexible on where we're going to go. Though I do find so often people don't even realize that they're doing it out of that wounding. Do people typically know
exactly
that is it kind of one of those things that people are beginning to realize it when they're ready to come to you? Or is it more of those, they didn't even know what they didn't even know?
Yeah, it's a lot of times they don't know what they didn't know, or they don't know what they don't know. Here's a sign. So first of all, what you can do, you can kind of write down everything that happens, everything that you're responsible for in your business, like make a list and feel into each item, right? Put yourself in the position of how it feels when you deal with that item. Now, there's unavoidable things, guys, that we have to do in our business, like accounting. Okay. We have to file our taxes. We have to do accounting. Like some of them feel icky because they're tied to other things, like, money fears or that type of thing. But I want you to think about like the physical things that happen in your business and how do you feel? And then I want you to think back and we're going to kind of put them into two buckets, right? Things that feel good, things that don't feel good. things that don't feel good, I want you to start to think about, does it tie back to a feeling that you had in childhood? Like, does this tie back to something deeper? That's really what did it for me, is I realized that I had a 100% client retention
Dang.
rate in my
Wow.
travel business. That sounds good.
Or really bad.
It
Wait,
sounds
now I'm
good.
sitting here thinking, if you love
Yeah,
your clients and they're all great,
right.
but then I'm thinking, wait, no, because I've fired plenty of clients, and now I'm much better at telling clients that aren't right for me no. Oh, so you kept all the bad
Exactly.
ones too.
And so, right. So I would fire, it did eventually get to the point of firing clients eventually. But how much, right? So here's what I told myself, right? If I'm perfect, so like the wounding said, if I'm perfect, then they'll love me and they won't
Oh.
leave me.
Mm.
Right. So now I have to be perfect
Mm.
every day. And if I don't, and if I'm not, then I get this gut clenching feeling that makes me want to vomit. And I start immediately going down the rabbit hole of, I'm going to lose this client. They're not going to want to work with me. Right. Which is very, very detrimental. And this is the same relationship that I had with, parental figures growing up. I had abandonment in my childhood. And so how do we, right? So really what was happening was, now consciously, my mind thought, oh, we're healing this because I can
Mm.
control this. I can control this. I can make it perfect, right? But the truth is that you can't.
No,
Perfection
yeah.
is a myth. And especially in the travel space, right? So my conscious mind created this opportunity to heal the wound by being perfect all the time. And I got paid for perfection. I did. I got paid to
Oof.
say yes, even when I wanted to say no. So as I began to work on having boundaries, it really became apparent that, oh my God, I'm getting paid to say yes. And in sports travel, when you would say no, people would just raise the price to
Hmm.
make you say yes. Right. So it's really reinforcing all of that ickiness, right? I'm literally getting paid to violate my boundaries.
That's a hardcore one. And so I'm sitting here thinking, because yes, we can kind of do this introspection. However, one of the things I work with people on is helping them find their why. Why do they do their business? Why do they love it? And I find that usually it takes us like 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes if we do it together, versus if people are doing it on their own, it's like 6 years later and we're still working on it. Do you find
Right.
that you're able to kind of work with people to help shorten the amount of time it's going to take for them to identify these components?
Yeah, I think, I agree with you on the why piece, because that my deeper why. So when we can look at our business from that deeper why, my deeper why is that the travel, people cause
Mm.
transformation. People experience transformation in the travel. And I realized that that actually is my superpower. That is my zone of genius. My zone of genius is helping people to have
Nice.
transformation. And that it works best when I can take them out of their environment into a new environment to have the transformation. So a retreat, I have a forest property here in Texas that I take people, and we do 5-day semi-silent retreats where they can really
Are you
be
forest bathing?
introspective.
Okay, so I didn't
Oh
know this
yeah.
was a thing until like 2 months ago. One of the books I'm reading, maybe it was
Yeah.
Gratitude Diaries or what, I don't know. One of the books I'm reading was just talking about it, and now it's like showing up in my Facebook feed ads. So for the people that are watching this, and then we'll get back to talking about your retreats and stuff, because squirrel, y'all. What is forest bathing? If you're okay going there,
Yeah.
and do you do it during your retreats?
Yeah, we do. And so we do the forest bathing during the retreat. And basically what it is really being super present in the forest, breathing in what's around you and noticing even just the smallest things. And it's really bringing yourself back to that presence over and over and over again in the forest, and letting the messages that your body, your subconscious want you to hear come to the surface. And so we'll do little sensory things, like there's moss all over my forest, so you can go and you can put your toes in the moss, and then when you look, You can look deeper. In nature, there's always something to see deeper. And so there's these, you can go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And so the beauty of forest bathing is it's just this introspection, this layers and layers and layers of introspection. So we can look at the moss, we can feel the moss, but then when you look down into the moss, you start to notice all the little components of the moss. You start to notice what else is in there, right? There's little insects in there. There's other little forest debris in there, and we can just go deeper and deeper. And in the same way, as we begin to go deeper and deeper, we go deeper and deeper into ourselves as well.
Nice. All right. Thanks for the tangent. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, new fun stuff. So tell us a little, we were talking, I think you were talking about, that you host retreats there. And, I knew we'd get back to it. Breaking out of doing it in a different area. I think is how we got to talking about the retreats.
Yeah. So breaking out and doing this in different areas, right? Where we can, well, you had asked me about like, do people get there? What was that?
Go ahead.
I think what you had asked was, how do people, like when I work with people, does the result come faster? What we find is that, especially if they come and do the forest retreat, it is like, people get what is normally done in months of going through the dark night. By the way, the dark night of the soul, guys, is real. This thing can last, it can last years, right? My dark night of the soul lasted years. And so what we find is that when people have something that's really ready to be released, when we do the forest bathing and we do the forest retreat, it is like this instant. It's not instant, it takes place over 5 days, but because there's nothing, there's no cell phone, you can't use your cell phone, there's no computers, there's no nothing. It's just you and me and my partner in the forest, and we're just helping you to process what needs to be processed. It happens so much faster, just like you with your why, right? You can help people get to it in 15 or minutes or 30 minutes, as opposed to the 6 months or the 3 years or however long they've been searching for it.
Nice. Now, I think a good first step, maybe people aren't ready for the 5-day retreat, though I'm sure if you go, Gini can help you with that. But tell us a little bit more. I know you mentioned these decompressions. Anything they need to know with, so y'all, it's bit.ly/ and bit.ly is peculiar about CAPS. So WELCD. So it's for women entrepreneurs living child-free. So that's the breakdown of it, with the D uppercase and then compression. And these are the sessions. She's letting you come for free when you use the coupon code LOVE, because you're hanging out with us amazing women entrepreneurs. Absolutely. But anything you want to add on that for people?
Yeah. So the decompression sessions are your chance, and we're actually moving them. We're starting to move them to evening sessions. They've been during the day sessions for now. We're actually going to add some evening sessions. It's your chance to come and just let it out. Like, let out what you're feeling. You can be off camera. You can have an anonymous name. Like, you can do all of that. It's just a place to just let your emotional freak flag fly, so to speak. Like, just come be emotional. Like, and if you come and you complain about the exact same thing for 8 months, that's fine. There's no judgment, right? Sometimes we just don't feel that we can do that. Like, we have to stop because we have to move on. We're supposed to get over it. We're supposed to, guys, there's stuff that is painful that you may never get over.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is your place to come and be safe in talking about what you're feeling. What we do is we do a bit of journaling in the beginning. Then we do anonymous sessions with each other, where we actually can share either verbally or typing in the chat how we're feeling. But you can turn off your camera. You can be anonymous. Then afterwards, we do a meditation, and we kind of finish feeling the emotion and clear the emotion.
Oh, I love that. Sometimes, I know it's about, okay, don't let stuff bother you, but sometimes it's like, I've got to get rid of it somehow, some way. So This sounds like an amazing way to do that. And also, y'all, because Gini does have for us an energy clearing meditation on YouTube. So wherever you're watching this, it is already in the description. So you can go click on that and check out that video. Now, if they want to check you out further, where can they find you online?
Yeah. So the best place to find me is like I have, I'm on Facebook as as Gini Trask. I have a public page there. But you can also find me the best way to reach me is info@ginitrask.com. That reaches out to my assistant, and we can get you booked into the decompression sessions. I do private decompression sessions as well, if people want a one-on-one decompression session. And then I also, of course, have the forest retreats, which are five nights, and we usually do those for $2,000. So it's all, includes all the food, all the things. But yeah, so those are the different ways to.
That's not cheap, $2,000, 5 nights.
I know. $2,000 for 5 nights to really make a massive transition. I mean, we had a woman who came out and she was grieving the loss of a relationship. Her partner had broken up with her. She was really, really in love with this person. And by the time we were done with the 5 days, she was totally complete with the law. And it had just happened right before. And she was just totally complete. She left and it was like, I'm okay. I'm totally okay. I'm okay with the end of this relationship. I'm fine with everything. She just, she's like, to this day, she's like, it's the fastest processing of grief and the end of a relationship that I've ever had.
Yeah. And I think there is something to be said so much for A, getting out of the space that you're always in, and B, that nature aspect of it is phenomenal. So we just are almost done here. Do me a favor. What is the one last thing that you want to leave our viewing audience with? What do you want these ladies to know?
You are the most important person in your life, especially if you've chosen to live child-free. You made that choice. You did. And so don't forget that. Don't forget this is your life, that you made the choices that you made for a reason. And so treat yourself as that most important person every single day, as often as you can remind yourself of that, as you're making choices, as you're deciding what to do in your business. Everything should be serving you.
I love that. Amazing advice. Ladies, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for being here with us today on our second episode. Thanks everybody watching, and look for us next week where we have our women entrepreneurs living child-free, our next conversation. Happy networking, y'all.
Thanks, Tiffanie.